Hey guys, today I'm going to share with you some of my most helpful, in my opinion, tips for preventing the retinoid uglies. You know, that dryness and peeling that a lot of people experience when introducing maybe a prescription retinoid or an over-the-counter cosmetic retinol or retinaldehyde into their routine. The formula overall can make a huge difference. If you're using old school tretinoin cream, for example, the highest percentage, 0.1%, that's more likely to lead you down the path of having a lot of dryness and irritation. Whereas there are newer formulas that have incorporated other technologies to allow for easier delivery of the retinoid so that it's less irritating, along with a formulation that is maybe more moisturizing, gentler. I want to point that out from the beginning because if you have found this video as someone who feels as though you have just been peeling like an onion for months and months and months, there's no light at the end of the tunnel in sight for you, you're getting really frustrated, well, it may be as simple as switching up to a different brand, a different formulation, a different form can actually make a difference. What are some things that you can do to minimize irritation from your topical vitamin A, we'll just say? First of all, make sure you are applying it to clean skin. This may seem obvious, but you don't want to put it on to makeup. So make sure you've washed your face first. When you wash your face, knowing that you're going to be applying your form of vitamin A in the ensuing steps, be really careful that you are not boiling your skin in super hot water. That can set you up for even more irritation. And make sure that the cleanser you are using is mild. By and large, most cleansers marketed as facial cleansers are pretty mild. When I think of a harsh cleanser, a harsh soap, I think more of like old-fashioned bar soap. Can be really irritating. But I came across a TikTok the other day of a gal saying that she swears by using Dial hand soap on the face. Works for her, not something I suggest, because Dial hand soap can be pretty harsh, not great for your skin. But you know, there are gonna be those unicorns out there for which that works for. If you are somebody who's been washing your face with hand soap, you're gonna start a retinoid, you may wanna reconsider that. You don't wanna be scrubbing either. You don't wanna use some kind of harsh scrub. You don't want to use a washcloth that you are just rubbing. If you're someone who has used a buff puff since the 80s, you may wanna set that to the side for a while because it can add to the risk of overall irritation. A lot of people like to side-eye the St. Ives scrub. It works for some people, but when you are getting ready to start introducing vitamin A into your routine, maybe a time to settle St. Ives aside. The next thing you want to think about is the pace with which you introduce the form of vitamin A. It's intended to be used on a nightly basis, but if you start using it every night for the first few weeks, that can get you to a lot of irritation that kind of comes to a head maybe by the end of the week. You're like, oh my gosh, where did all of this peeling come from? Alternatively, you can introduce it more slowly. Once a week even, in the beginning for a week or so, then increase to every other night, then nightly as tolerated. Some people are so sensitive to the dryness and irritation and peeling of topical vitamin A, especially the prescription stuff, that there's even a short contact therapy approach that you can do. Now, I have a whole video explaining exactly how to do short contact therapy. I will link that video down below in the description box. Just as the name implies, it's exactly that. You put the retinoid on, you leave it on almost like a mask. You leave it on for 10 minutes or so, then you rinse it off. But I point that out because some of you all have rosacea, and a lot of patients with rosacea have been told vitamin A is not for you, but it actually can end up in the long run being really beneficial for patients with rosacea. The challenge is getting them to tolerate it. And the short contact therapy approach can be just the ticket. Definitely check that video out. I go into a lot more details. Keep in mind that topical vitamin A can be even more irritating in this part of your nose, these little curvatures here around the nose, around the mouth, especially the corners of your mouth, and around your eyes. So I always suggest getting plain petroleum jelly and creating a thin little film of petroleum jelly to these areas. Petroleum jelly will significantly limit penetration of vitamin A into the skin, protect those areas. As far as the vitamin A, how much do you apply? All right, you know, the package insert will often say pea size. You'll probably even be instructed use a pea-sized amount. Pea, pearl, I mean, you can pull out peas out of a can, those little, what are those little tiny peas? I mean, that's not enough. But some peas are quite big, so it gets a little bit, you know, splitting hairs with how much. But keep in mind, you don't need a lot to get a nice thin film. Some of it will depend on the size of your face, and so people will go back and forth online pointing out that's not a pea, that's not a pea, that's way too much. But the main thing that's important for you to keep in mind is that you don't need a big glob. You don't need to put on a ton. You really shouldn't need very much to create a thin film. Using more does not get you better results, and if anything, it can be more irritating for some people. Just waste the product or prescription. Thin film, that's all you need, thin film. All right, so it's clear up until this point you want to put it on clean skin. So how long after cleansing should you apply vitamin A? Well, that depends, and certainly can influence the irritation. Some people are able to rinse the cleanser off and put tretinoin on to damp skin. And if you've never watched any of my videos before, I often point this out. When you apply things to the skin while it's damp, it enhances penetration. That might be a great thing for you, depending on where you're at and how well you tolerate topical vitamin A. Speaking of TikTok, I came across a TikTok the other day of a woman who says, yeah, I put it on damp skin. I've been doing that for years, works well for me. Great. Not technically wrong, but generally speaking, I tell patients to rinse the skin clean, maybe pat dry the drips, and then go ahead and apply your moisturizer on. If you're using hydrating serums, you might want to put those on first too. Let those absorb, dry, so the skin is no longer like wet, and then put tretinoin on. That's an option. Or alternatively, if you're really sensitive and you've been having a lot of problems getting used to your form of topical vitamin A, this can actually make a huge difference for you. Not necessary, but it could make a difference for you. Do your nighttime skincare routine. Wait a full 30 minutes to an hour before putting tretinoin on, because the stratum corneum, while you're doing your nighttime skincare routine, it's got a pretty good water content to it, and that might just be what is allowing for the tretinoin to get in very quickly and give you a lot of irritation. So by letting the skin fully dry, we're talking beyond just I touch my skin and it feels dry. Letting it fully dry and then applying the form of topical vitamin A can make a difference. Not necessary to do it that way, but I'm telling you, if you're somebody who has struggled, try that approach. So you probably have a lot of questions at this point, like, I thought we should put tretinoin on first and then, you know, our moisturizer, or should we do serum first and then tretinoin and then moisturizer, or like, where does my antioxidant come in? What about my peptide? Long story short, there is no right or wrong order of layering in terms of your moisturizer and your form of topical vitamin A, except in the case of if you're somebody who likes to slug, you know, you put a ointment on like petroleum jelly, Aquaphor, CeraVe healing ointment, diaper rash cream. If you like doing that as part of your nighttime skincare routine, you don't want to do that before applying your retinoid, because those things are really good barrier products. They really limit penetration of things, and your form of vitamin A is unlikely to get in. Some will get in, but not really, you know, to the extent that you want. But for the rest of your products, creams, lotions, serums, it's fine to put those on first and then apply tretinoin. How soon after applying those should you apply tretinoin? Well, it kind of depends. You could put tretinoin on immediately, but the skin's gonna be a bit damp from you washing your face and from those products. That little bit of extra moisture is gonna allow for better penetration of tretinoin. That may be too irritating for you, or maybe just fine. Alternatively, you can let it dry to the extent where it looks and feels dry, put it on, or you may be one of those people who needs to wait like a full 30 minutes to an hour before coming on in to help minimize irritation. So you can do it that way, or alternatively, if you want, you can try putting tretinoin on to the skin, either damp immediately after cleansing, after you rinse it off. Again, that'll really enhance penetration, or you can pat dry the skin, put it on, and then put the rest of your skincare on over. It really, at the end of the day, the order is not that important. And people will say, well, won't our moisturizing creams limit the penetration of the retinoid? They don't. We actually have studies showing this. Putting on the cream, a moisturizing cream before retinoid, does not impact the efficacy of the retinoid. In fact, there was a study published a few weeks ago in the psoriasis literature looking at the use of a topical retinoid, tazarotene, which we use to treat psoriasis. And they had the patients apply CeraVe cream to the psoriasis either before or after applying tazarotene plus another medication used to treat psoriasis. And they wanted to see, did that impact how soon to see improvement in the psoriasis, and it didn't. If you know anything about psoriasis, the skin lesions of psoriasis can be quite thick, and it can actually be challenging to get stuff into them to help clear the psoriasis. So the fact that putting CeraVe cream on before putting on the medication had no impact is further supportive of the fact that really the order in which you layer products with your retinoid doesn't really matter that much. Just understand some basic principles about topical delivery of active ingredients, that they do penetrate more readily when there's moisture content in the skin, either from just cleansing the skin, there's water there from rinsing the cleanser off, and or the products that you have on, hydrating products with water in them, are still wet on the skin surface, enhance penetration. Speaking of other products, there are some ingredients that certainly can make your topical vitamin A more irritating to you. It's not to say that you could never use these ingredients with topical vitamin A that you are using, but they can enhance the irritancy. So maybe want to stay away from them when first starting your topical vitamin A. Benzoyl peroxide is one that we frequently tell people to not use at the same time that they're applying their form of vitamin A. So if you put your vitamin A on at night but you want to use benzoyl peroxide, I'd say use it in the morning. Now there are exceptions to this advice. A lot of this advice stems from the fact that benzoyl peroxide can degrade certain forms of topical vitamin A. However, manufacturers, drug companies, pharmaceutical companies have found ways to overcome this limitation. So it's not true for all forms of topical vitamin A. But that would be one. Exfoliants, chemical exfoliants can enhance penetration of the vitamin A and can enhance the irritancy of it. So you might want to keep that in mind. So for example, glycolic acid, lactic acid, salicylic acid, these can allow for enhanced penetration, may make it more irritating. The other one that is kind of a bit of an unknown, theoretically may be a problem, we don't have a lot of research on it in this regard, I should say, is hypochlorous acid. This has become a lot more popular in skincare, but as it relates to topical vitamin A, similar to benzoyl peroxide, there is a potential in theory that hypochlorous acid could degrade whatever form of vitamin A you are using. So that's another one where you might want to reconsider using that alongside vitamin A, whether it be prescription or cosmetic. Here's the next little pointer that can make a difference. A lot of people are sold on the idea that they must wash their face twice a day. That being said, some people really do benefit from washing their face twice a day, especially if you have really oily skin. You wash your face at night and then the following morning, your skin is oily again, you want to wash your face in the morning to degrease the skin surface. But you don't necessarily need to wash your face twice a day. Not everyone does. And when you are starting a topical vitamin A, the more often you wash your face, the greater the chances of irritancy. The re-wetting of the skin brings along more irritation. So seriously reconsider, at least for a short-term period, not washing your face the following morning. Now, a lot of people are under the impression that they need to wash their face the next morning to wash the topical vitamin A off. You do not need to wash it off the following morning. And if anything, that extra washing of the face for some people can end up contributing to more irritation. During the day, doesn't it make us sensitive to the sun? The reason why people are a bit more sensitive in the sun is mostly in the beginning when they first start. The skin is just overall more sensitive. It's an environmental sensitivity. It's not just to sun, but also to wind. And by sensitive, the symptoms of sensitivity, burning, stinging, redness, irritation. But it is actually a myth that topical vitamin A makes you photosensitive. And people will say, well, like, what's the difference? It's a big difference. Photosensitivity implies that the drug, the active ingredient, has impacted your skin's minimal erythematous dose. The minimal dose of ultraviolet radiation from the sun needed to begin to damage your skin. And Drugs that do this, there are many that do this, they make you more sensitive to sun, more likely to burn in the sun. Topical vitamin A actually does not do that. The sensitivity that people experience in the sun, with the wind, environmental sensitivity, is a factor of the irritation from the vitamin A and is mostly an issue in the beginning. And the reason that's important to know is because a lot of people are under the impression that they need to stop using their vitamin A if they're going to go on a beach vacation, if they're going to go somewhere sunny. Not the case. But you absolutely need to protect your skin from the sun regardless of if you are using topical vitamin A or not, to protect against sunburns, skin cancer, premature skin aging. That being said, topical vitamin A actually can help your skin better handle, be better equipped to handle, I should say, UV, because topical vitamin A actually puts the brakes on upregulation of pathways that are activated by UV that ultimately destroy collagen and contribute to wrinkles. So sun protection plus retinol makes your skin better equipped to handle sun exposure. But protect your skin from the sun, all right? That is important. And so in the beginning, when you're feeling a lot of irritation, peeling, dryness, be mindful that sun, wind, environmental exposures can make you feel burning, stinging irritation. Now, when it comes to the dryness, the peeling, the flaking, do not try and pick it away. That can make it much worse, because as the skin is flaking away, you don't want to pick at that and further weaken your barrier, because that just drags the process on much longer. Instead, if you have a lot of flakes, get a little mineral oil, and massage it in a circular fashion. It can help dislodge those gently without disrupting your skin's moisture barrier. All right, y'all, those are my main tips for introducing a form of topical vitamin A, we'll say, since it is a really broad category, right? You've got tretinoin, tazarotene, adapalene, trifarotene. I have videos on all of these forms of prescription or over-the-counter vitamin A. Then you've also got retinol and retinaldehyde. Those are cosmetic, and I have videos on those as well if you want to know how they all differ. Anyway, y'all, those are my main tips. I really hope this video was helpful to you guys who may be going through this, considering starting, or maybe you tried it in the past, experienced irritation, bailed, and now you are wanting to reconsider introducing it again, but you're a little nervous about the dryness and peeling, the retinoid uglies, if you will. I really hope these tips help you out. But if you guys enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and as always, don't forget, sunscreen and subscribe. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye.